Hi, thanks for tuning in to our vertical features series. In this segment, we're going to do a quick overview on step construction. Traditionally, steps have been built out of segmental wall, in where we basically will mallet set each individual wall unit, leveling front to back, side to side, and then provide a coping piece on top as your stair tread. One of the drawbacks with that technique is always the reliance on that base not to move, and for these individual units not to individually flex or move independently. What happens there is when we get movement on one of these units, if your coping piece happens to fall on that seam line, you're going to get a pretty easy movement on that coping piece where it becomes unlodged, and then you get a call back because coping is becoming or unsticking or ungluing from that surface. Now, with the introduction of our universal base plate, we've kind of gone and moved over to more of a standard build with steps, utilizing that base unit, and that's kind of what you see here. One of the changes that you'll see is we will switch from a middle set, like you see on a traditional wall, to actually a sliding this unit kind of to the front, lining up so that our pavers can come flush to that first step. And so now you'll see that I have both support here, front side, and then full support on back side where you have some of that movement happening. The process to build a step is a pretty easy one, but there's a couple of things to consider before you start, whether you're going to do an inset or outside step, but also more importantly, the materials you're going to work with. As you can see here, we have a 6-inch estate wall, which is a perfect block for a lot of step building. It gives you that nice height to work with. Here on our Lineo block, that's at a 4-inch height, so that provides a little bit of added work that we need to configure in when building our steps. But very popular, and nonetheless something that needs to be used. The other thing that needs to be considered is your coping piece. That would be the tread on the step. And so what you'll see here is between our natural stone at 5 centimeter, our ledge stone at 6 centimeter, and then our Brussels phonos here at 7 centimeters, we have quite the range in height. And that coping is pretty much going to dictate your starting point on those steps. So knowing exactly what's going to be used so that you can get the right heights for your rise and your run is crucial to the start of your build. Once you have all that figured out, we can come back here to actually our step and start looking at this profile. And so you'll see here that flush base unit here and our Lineo piece right above it. You can kind of see that our pavers will come right up to it, and with our 4-inch piece here and a 2-inch coping piece, we get our nice 6-inch step. Check your local codes for step height. They vary depending on where location and where you're located. And so we know that we're going to want to stay at that 6-inch height, and so we'll make that adjustment on bottom side here on this front step. Traditionally as well, you'll see that a lot of these steps are going to be built on the base block here across the front, and then also in this instance across the sides here to give support. And then the inside is basically gravel used to raise that second step, third step, and so on. That's where we see a lot of the callbacks. A lot of that movement happens right in that gravel area. You don't get a good compaction rate. Maybe you can't compact against the house, and so we do more of a hand tamping and don't get a consolidation there like we need. Or again, you get movement in that base. And so what we really like to do is do more of a solid construction, which is what you're seeing here, and probably our recommendation. You'll see our base unit here, our block, and then we continue that throughout the step. And so now the other thing I've done here is I know that this piece here is a 14-inch tread, which is a very popular size. I wouldn't go anything smaller than a 12-inch. That's going to be pretty much the minimum of where you're going to want to see that stair tread. But a nice sweet spot is going to be that 14-inch unit. We have a few options for you to use. Knowing that, I know that I'm going to have an inch of overhang to the front side. So as you see here, I've made my mark across the back, side to side, for my next step at 13 inches from my front to the back to allocate for that 1 inch of overhang. And so that's my starting point for my next step. As we kind of move back here to the second step, in order to keep that same rise, I have to raise this block a little bit because of that 4-inch height. In order to do that, it's pretty convenient that I can cut a Lineo block. I'll do a rib cut. lengthwise to give me, at 2 inches right here. And now I can use both pieces like you see here. That back piece I'm going to use to help support backside of that coping piece or that tread. And then that other rip cut, I'll use bottom to lift at that 2-inch increment. Again, realize that if my coping is going to be thicker, then I adjust that accordingly. And that's why it's important to know from the beginning what exact materials you're going to be using versus changing up as you go along. That being said, that's really the process there that's going to get repeated until you reach your desired height. The one thing also that is an important piece is your adhesive. Choose a very high caliber adhesive, and you're really going to want to make sure that you get a great surface adhesion from your stair tread or coping piece to your actual block. So this lineo with the smooth surface, no grooves, anything like that, gives you great contact points along the whole areas. And that is a quick step overview. Thank you for your time.